As of today, we have 2 schools presenting, ESF and also Wycombe Abbey School, Hong Kong. So we will start off the introduction in Mandarin by Ms. Vivian. Vivian, would you please take over from here and start off the presentation webinar? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. 大家下午好今天欢迎大家来到我们企研伊比斯和 Whisper 我们一起举办的香港顶尖国际学校的网上招生的讲座。那么我是文芳今天我们会介绍2所学校，分别是英基西岛学校和我们的香港威亚学校。Next page， 下一个。好，那么以下呢是我们今天的会议流程。首先呢，我们会介绍我们企研伊比斯和 Whisper 2家公司，接下来是我们的开幕式，然后呢是我们2间学校的一个介绍，当中呢有这个提问的环节，那么最后是家长比较关心的签证常见问题的一些解答。那我们的讲座呢将在5点前结束。好，下一章。好，企研伊比斯教育呢，以10年人生规划、100年终身成就的理念，运用科技提升学习体验，激发学习兴趣，培养科学的学习习惯，全面评估学生的综合能力，提供优质的教育资源，为其制定个性化的培训计划，为全球家庭提供专业的国际教育咨询服务。好，下一章。那么今年呢，我们更加把我们独家人工智能垂直耕种的证书计划和威亚学校合作。大家呢可以向我们登记，然后呢在威亚学校上暑期班，做一个小小的绿色食物工程师。好，下一章。Whisper 是我们全港第一个集齐教育和亲子产品的资讯平台，有超过5000间的教育机构和亲子产品的资讯，包括学校、教育中心、升学顾问、游乐场、假日营地、医疗保健、慈善机构及儿童相关产品和服务等等。好，下一章。那我们这一次的讲座呢，也是特别鸣谢我们以上机构的一些支持。OK, next。好，那接下来呢，我们会介绍英基学校协会。那么英基学校协会呢，是香港最大的国际学校协会，有22间的学校，为3到19岁的学生提供由幼稚园、小学到中学一条龙的教育。学校协会有来自75个不同国家的超过18000个学生，多元化和包容性是他们的核心的价值之一。那么学校呢是遍布我们香港岛、九龙和新界。好，下一章。那么接下来呢，我们会介绍我们第1位的主讲嘉宾 Mr. Chris Simons。他居港8年时间，曾受雇于2间国际学校。他原本呢是一个合资格的经济学老师，帮助很多香港和英国的学校不同的课程设计，以及任职牧师的领导职位。他担任高中校长已经有18年的时间，曾承任2所学校的校长。那么英基西岛学校呢，是为他带来了最大的乐趣。他与创始人继承的深厚价值观一起工作。他一直很好奇如何通过国际教育工作者最好的刺激、激励、激发教育来自不同文化、语言和种族背景的年轻人，让他们都有机会成为全国的领袖和公民。那么作为跨文化领导力发展的促进者， Chris 呢，目前的兴趣是受到当前流行病对年轻人生活的影响，就流行病的结果为年轻人研究神经学和心理学。工作之余呢，他喜欢与自己的妻子和3个孩子在一起阅读、跑步和游泳。好，那么接下来的时间，我把时间交给 Jennifer 来介绍一下我们的学校和校长。谢谢 Jennifer。
Thank you, Vivian, for the introduction in Mandarin earlier, and also thank you for introducing Mr. Simons. I will now go on to introducing Mr. Chris Simons, who is the principal of ESF West Island School. We will go through with the introduction in English. Chris has lived in Hong Kong for 8 years, employed in 2 international schools. He originally qualified as an economics teacher and has held different curriculum and pastoral leadership positions across a number of schools in Hong Kong and the UK. He has worked as a senior school leader for 18 years and has been the principal of 2 schools. ESF West Island School has given him the greatest joy working with deep values inherited from its founders. He remains persistently curious how best to motivate, inspire, and work through international educators to teach young people from different cultural, linguistic, and ethnic backgrounds to become global leaders and citizens of the future. Qualified as a facilitator for intercultural leadership development, Chris's current interests have been influenced by the impact of the current pandemic on young people's lives, researching the neuroscience and psychology of mental health for young people as a result of the pandemic. Outside of work, he enjoys spending time with his wife and 3 children, reading, running, and swimming. Now I shall call upon Mr. Chris Salmons to share his slides and begin his presentation in English to our parents. Thank you, Mr. Salmons. Ms. Chris, I think you're on mute at the moment.
Thank you, I'm getting there. Thank you so much for that very kind introduction. And I'm just finding my way now to the slides. A warm welcome to you as well and everybody who's on this call. Originally, I was from the United Kingdom, but I have been working in Hong Kong now for the last 6 years as principal at West Island School. We're 30 years old as a school, and as a foundation, the English Schools Foundation is over 56 years old now. So a long heritage established in Hong Kong. And I'm really pleased and proud to have the opportunity to share some information about the foundation and the opportunities for young people. As a parent of 3 children, which you've been introduced to, I really understand how important the decision is of choosing the right school that has the right values and the right curriculum for your families. Now, at ESF, one of the things that's really important to us is to understand that every learner is different. And that's why our vision is for every student to be the best that they can be. And what we're very interested in is identifying the strengths of each individual and nurturing those talents through a variety of curriculum choices, really strong pedagogy in our teaching approaches, and taking good feedback from our community of parents and learners. Overall, we want our learners to be really inspired by the time that they leave us, inspired to be well-rounded citizens who can apply to the top universities, who can apply for the jobs which they're interested in, and to demonstrate the leadership that they've been able to acquire as a result of our education. We exist as a foundation in Hong Kong of 22 schools, and this is our strength. The size of our organisation means that we can give many opportunities to learners, to employees, and also for parents to network with each other. We have 5 kindergartens, we have 9 primary schools, 5 secondary schools, and what we call 2 all-through schools, where students will be on the same site from the ages of 3 to 18. And you can see here on this slide the map of the schools that cover the entirety of Hong Kong and serve many different communities in the area. All of our schools provide excellent learning spaces and have really high specification facilities which are specialised to help us deliver inspiring curriculums. We are world leading in the education that we provide, with over 50 years of excellence to draw from, as well as a large number of learners from different nationalities. And you can see there in our last census, we counted 75 different nationalities. We also offer the International Baccalaureate curriculum. In addition to that, we have well over 40 different nationalities represented in our teaching teams. So we draw strength from our diversity. We take a research-informed approach in designing the learning. That's when we sit down as professionals and plan the learning experience, right through from age 3 to 18, to how we might think about the best way to assess young people so they can demonstrate their real strengths as individual learners. Our focus always in the curriculum is to think about the depth of knowing and understanding the world. We might talk and present conceptual knowledge, factual knowledge, debatable knowledge, but always developing critical skills, ways to think and engage with knowledge that's being presented to us so we can analyze, explore, evaluate, and construct our own understanding of the world. And as a result of that, our learners obtain some of the world's leading results. Now, one of our strengths working as a foundation is we can really personalize the learning and the learners' opportunities through a really broad curriculum. Every child is unique, and then for every child needs to construct their own individual pathways from the choices we're able to provide. We're really excited over the last 4 years to have made partnerships with international institutions to extend our programs in the senior school. So, for example, we have a partnership with the Hong Kong Academy of Performing Arts, the Savannah College of Art and Design, the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and the World Academy of Sport. And what that means is, as our students develop their own individual passions and interests, we can actually reach out to these partners and further personalize the learning opportunities they have. Now, from the primary years, when students join us very early at the age of 3 and 4 in the kindergartens, we follow the primary years program. That's the International Baccalaureate Primary Years program, where the emphasis is on inquiry, structured learners, and developing individual confidence. That flows into a primary education from the ages of 5 to 11, where our learners build their skills even more in their language acquisition. That's the spoken, the written, and the listening. And then from 11 to 14, our students enter the International Baccalaureate Middle Years program. That builds on the skills of the learners from their previous school, and it allows a little bit more what we call disciplinary learning. So subjects are taught more discreetly at this point in a child's curriculum. At the senior school level, students then get to specialize in 3 different pathways. That might be the IB diploma program, the IB careers related program, or actually our vocational BTEC program. And some of our learners can have well over 60 choices from different combination of courses that they can put together to pursue their individual passions. Now, ESF Education has what we call 6 drivers. These are the things that we think are critical as educators and leaders to keep developing in our daily practices, to make sure that the learning is active, that we balance out the combination of teacher talk and student inquiry so that we can get a depth of engagement with each of our learners. With the wide variety of nationalities and backgrounds of our learners, we have a very diverse resource to draw from, and we can have teachable moments in collaboration that help our learners think about what it will be like in the future world of work. Many of our schools have mapped the sustainable development goals into our curriculum so that our learners are developing a deep consciousness about how what they're doing now can impact on their future lives. And finally, what's important to all of us is that our learners become multilingual and not only a master of their first language or their home language, but they actually learn to communicate with others in different languages too. And given the impact of the last 3 years and the global pandemic, we have a super strong focus on well-being and health and support. That's both the physical health and the mental health of our learners. We want our learners to be resilient and we want them to be wholesome. And giving equal weight to the pastoral structures in our schools is something we all care about deeply. We have outstanding academic results year on year. West Island School was in the top 3% of IB schools worldwide. World-leading academic performance is the result of all of our efforts and all of our beliefs, our leadership, and working with our passionate teachers. 64 of our students obtained 45 points, which is the maximum in the IB diploma programme. Many of our universities will study at the leading universities in the world, working with world-leading researchers to further their own interests. And what's important to us too, not only to work hard, but to play hard. And that's why we have an extensive programme of extracurricular activities. In my school alone, we will have a choice of over 200 extracurricular activities which unfold during the year. That can be anything such as giving service to the local community for some people who might be part of a minority group in Hong Kong, to a wrestling club. We accommodate the full range of interests that our youngsters have. And what was amazing, what's going to be amazing coming up is that 6 of our alumni competed in the Tokyo Olympics in 2021. And even at West Island School, one of our former Olympians, Jeffrey Chow, was an Olympian swimmer too. It's incredible what our young people have achieved and can achieve. 50% of our students achieved 40 or more points, 50%. That's what gives them the access to the world-leading universities. The average score of the IB across the globe was 33 points. The average score for anybody who graduated from a school in ESF was nearly 39 points. We're deeply proud of our learners and all of their hard work and all the hard work of our educators too. Not only that, but 98 students awarded a bilingual diploma. That means they took their first language choice to considerable depth. That might be choosing Cotonou as your first language. It might be choosing Japanese. It might be choosing Spanish. It might be anything which is your first mother tongue that you want to connect with. And the language acquisition of English is therefore called what we call the B choice. Finally, our success. Our success comes from attracting top teaching talent from around the world. And even in this situation of COVID, which has, for some schools, created some challenges with recruitment, people want to come and work with us. They recognise the resources we have. They also recognise the talents of our learners, and they want to demonstrate their passion for their subject and enable young people to make extraordinary progress. A key feature of an ESF teacher is that they want to bring out the best in every student. So it is about helping them be their best, but in all spheres, not only the academic performance, but the wider learning as well. We really want young people to find out what their why is for the world. We want young people to have engaged with a number of social and service activities so that when they graduate from us, there are some values that they hold dear to their hearts, which they will continue with beyond the formal academic curriculum and beyond our school system. We treasure high quality learning experiences, and as an organisation, we are continually reflecting on what we can do to be better. That means sometimes we sit down with our learners and we ask them for feedback about what they would like to learn more of, how we might construct the learning differently, and what help they can give us in designing the learning process. As you can see, it's about a real partnership between teachers, children, and also you two as parents. Children really are at the heart of our classrooms. Now, Chinese is something that's important for every student in our school, and learners will begin their journey in the Chinese curriculum right from the moment they join us. Whilst we're not a bilingual system, we do have many bilingual classes in a number of our schools. This means that young people can learn and excel, and all levels are catered for. If I talk about my own school, for example, we have different pathways that provide the right challenge of learning. It might be that we have a native learner that needs to learn language and has the ability to study Chinese text and literature to much more depth. We also have a pathway for what we call near-native learners. So that might be a child that has Chinese as their first language or mother tongue, but because of the context of the family or other languages which are present, they need some more structure and support to learn to the same depth. And then we have a pathway which is called our foreign language learners pathway as well. We use simplified characters, and we also really enjoy celebrating the many cultural events and holidays and values that underpin the qualities of Chinese culture. So what we aim to do is to make sure every student is the best that they can be. We do that by attracting top applicants. Most years we'll receive 5,000 applications for people that want to come and work for only just 100 vacancies. We invest in our teachers' professional learning and development, and we rely on our teachers to engage in their own thinking and critical reflection. Teachers' technical skills are important, but having the ability to forge really positive, supportive relationships with learners and to understand learners and their family and home backgrounds is a real strength. And if you think back to your own days at school, you may not remember everything that you were taught in class, but you will remember how your teachers made you feel. ESF principals, teachers, parents understand that children are the most precious thing on the planet, and they deserve the best education that we can give them. The best conditions for learning will help them to thrive, be confident, happy, successful, and kind. And if this is something you believe that's right for your family values and your child, please don't hesitate to contact us. There's an inquiry hotline here. Speak to Francis and he'll be able to answer any of your questions. You'll also be able to access any of the 22 individual school websites, whether that's the kindergarten, the primary, or the senior schools, or even the 2 or 3 schools. And you can further understand the opportunities that are on offer to you. We really look forward to welcoming your family, and thank you for the time to give this presentation.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for the insightful presentation. Now we shall move on to questions and answer session, whereby we will go through the question in English and then invite you to answer the questions. And then Vivian will then translate the question into Mandarin and also translate your answer into Mandarin as well. So I'm moving on to the first question that we have. For ESF West Island School, the mission is to provide exceptional learning opportunities that emphasize achievement, personal fulfillment, service to others, learning skills, and responsible global citizenship. This is so important in our chaotic world today with the pandemic, war in Ukraine, and rising environmental issues. How, in your view, do you think ESF West Island School can prepare our kids and achieve the above mission? Can you share some examples and successes, current or past, that the school is doing to achieve the mission above?
Of course. Of course we can. West Island School readies our students in many ways to be prepared for the uncertainty and sometimes difficult moments that happen in life and the world. The last few years are evidence of that. Exceptional learning opportunities begin with a wide range of curriculum pathways, so there is choice. And there has to be choice so that young people can think about their own passions and interests and gradually undertake more study in an area of the curriculum that genuinely interests them. For example, we offer 3 pathways here. We offer the IB Diploma Programme, the IB Careers Related Programme, and also the Learning Pathway of BTEC qualifications. And they are qualifications which mean they have a different method of teaching, a different method of assessment to suit individual needs. Within those pathways, we provide exceptional learning opportunities by having up to 60 different choice combinations. We really want students to find their why in the world. And so what we do is we make sure there are some relevance to how a student might take action as a result of their learning. It might be something as simple as making a pledge after you've learned about something to do with the environment. It might be something about a campaign to raise awareness for a minority group. It might be service such as raising funds and going to work with people who are less privileged than us and being able to help build homes and community facilities. So by the end of a learner's journey with us, they have developed what they are interested in and they continue to give service. We think that's an exceptional learning opportunity, which is about more than the formal curriculum. We can also understand learning has changed with open access to the internet. And this means that students have developed access to knowledge in ways that we didn't have. And so at West Island School, it's really important for us to teach not only of the content of courses, but to teach children how to learn. And these are called learning skills. We map a number of ways in our curriculum which teaches children about personal integrity in researching other ideas, how to be academically critical of those ideas, and how to develop new ways of thinking. And our very last wish as a school is to help our learners to understand how to give and receive kindness so they can use this in their own future positions of leadership. And our focus on helping each individual to achieve their best results in us being in the top 3% of IB schools worldwide. We were judged by the International Baccalaureate 2 weeks ago in an evaluation as providing effective education that was caring, supportive, and inclusive.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer and Mr. Chris. 那么我们刚刚呢已经回答了我们有第一个问题哈，他提问是英基西岛学校的使命是提供卓越的学习机会，强调成就，包括个人成就、为他人服务、学习技能和负责任的全国公民身份。那么这个在当今这个流行病肆虐、乌克兰战争和环境问题日益严重的混乱世界当中是非常重要的。那您认为英基学校如何为我们的孩子做好准备并实现上述的使命的？你能够分享一些学校为实现上述使命已经做成功的例子吗？好，Chris 的回答是这样的：英基西岛学校呢是以多种方式让我们的学生做好准备，以应对生活和世界中发生的不确定性和困难的时期。卓越的学习机会呢，是开始于广泛的这个课程的学习，这意味着呢，我们的学生可以有明确的选择来培养他们的热情和兴趣，让学生在他们真正感兴趣的课程领域进行循序渐进的一个学习。比如说，我们为学生提供了3种的途径去学习，有这个 IB 的文凭课程、IB 的职业相关课程和 BTEC 资格的职业学习的课程。那么我们提供的这些资格类型呢，有不同的教学和评估的方法，以满足个别学生的一个需求。在这些学习当中，有广泛的学科的选择，比如说我们为16到18岁的学生提供了60多种不同的课程组合。在英基西岛学校，我们认为年轻人呢要找他们的为什么。除了正式的学习机会呢，我们非常重视这个服务的学习。比如说，当一个孩子他做一些简单的事情，例如承诺做一些他们在课程当中学到的事情，那这也是一个作为服务的行动。又比如领导一场运动来提高对他人权利的认识，也是一个重要的服务活动。又比如筹集资金支持贫困社区，并访问他们来帮助建造家园和社区的设施，那这也是一项服务。 那么在我们学校7年以后呢，我们这些学生将会确定他们感兴趣的一些关键的领域，并且继续在这些领域去服务。那么这些领域呢是没有经过正式的审核，但是呢，它成为地球上有意义的公民呢是非常必要的。那么我们也是可以理解，随着互联网的这个开放，学习是发生了很多的变化。这意味着我们的学生呢，已经用以前没办法获得的方式获得了知识。因此呢，在英基西岛学校呢，我们不仅教授我们课程的内容，还需要呢教授我们的学生如何去学习。那么这些呢，我们把这些称为是学习技能。那么我们在课程当中也提出了一些方法，这些方法呢是教孩子们在研究他人想法的时候个人的诚信，以及如何在学术上对那些想法持批评的态度，以及如何利用他们的知识发展新的思维方式。在学生从我们学校毕业的时候，他们将会很好的了解到他们自己的学习的最佳方式，那么他们在学习新知识方面的优势，以及哪一些领域还需要进一步的发展。那么这些意味着英基西岛学校的学生可以培养终身的技能，以及无论需要学习什么内容，他们呢都可以利用这些技能。那么作为一所学校，我们最后的愿望是帮助我们的学生如何理解、给予、接受和理解善意，以便他们在未来的岗位上继续去运用。我们呢也是专注帮助每位学生是实现他们最佳的个人成绩，那么这使得我们的成绩在全球 IB 课程的成绩中是名列前茅的，是前3%。那么在今年5月份对我们学校进行了一次评估当中呢，国际文凭也是评定了我们已经提供了关爱、支持和包容的有效的教育。好，那么接下来的时间交给 Jennifer 来看我们的第2个问题，谢谢。
好，谢谢你 Vivian。Hi, Mr. Sammons. Moving on to the second question, I understand that ESF West Island School is the first among the ESF schools to offer Mandarin lessons to your students, and even divided your houses into Chinese dynasties instead of houses. Can you elaborate more on the Chinese curriculum offered at West Island School? Are children stream into native or international bands? And do you offer students the chance to achieve IB dual English-Chinese diplomas in secondary? In fact, amongst all the ESF schools, is the Chinese curriculum consistent, or are they different from school to school?
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, in the 22 schools within ESF, we are very similar, but not identical in the approaches we have to the teaching of Chinese. And anybody from the audience here is very welcome at any point to contact any of the admissions team within each individual school to confirm exactly what the provision is. I'll talk about West Island School, where we have 38 different nationalities and 60 spoken languages other than English. But every child studies Chinese from kindergarten right through to year 13, which is the name of our highest year group at age of 18. But at West Island, our learners will study Putonghua from our team of 6 teachers, all from mainland China. All of these teachers have lived in Hong Kong from between 6 to 25 years and are native Chinese language speakers themselves. Most have a master's degree in Chinese language and literature that has been obtained from a Chinese university or a Hong Kong university. Children at West Island School, my school, study 3 lessons a week in Chinese, and learners are placed in the pathway which provides the most appropriate level of challenge. So, for example, our native speaking pathway means that learners will develop a clear ability in speaking and writing and listening to Putonghua, but they will also study literature to some depth. In a near native pathway, where children may not have sufficient exposure to language in their home environment or their current living arrangements, or where Putonghua might not be the first language of the family, they will be given a more structured curriculum to enable them to make progress. And finally, as a foreign language learner, we have some learners who will be given a different pathway there. But what's really interesting for us is that we do have some learners here whose mother tongue is not English, and whose mother tongue is not English, so it might be an Indian language or it might be a European language, and yet they have developed sufficient skills to be learning in our native language pathway. And we're really deeply proud of that and the quality of the teaching they receive. We're also very proud every year that a number of learners will take Chinese as their elected language of study, which is called a language choice A, and English will be their second language, which is known as language choice B, and that means they can graduate with a bilingual diploma.
Great, thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Vivian to translate the question and the answer into Mandarin, please. Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you, Jennifer and Mr. Chris. 我们第一个提问是，据我所知，英基西岛学校是第一家为学生提供汉语课程的英基学校，甚至呢，他们将教室划分为用中国的朝代去命名，而不是仅仅是一个教室啊。你能够详细介绍一下我们西岛学校提供的汉语课程吗？那么孩子们是否会被分到本地组或者是国际组呢？为学生提供了在中学获得 IB 英汉双语学位的机会没有啊？那事实上，在所有的英基学校当中，中文课程是一致的还是不同的呢？好，那我们的回答是这样的，在英基呢有22所学校，在香港分布在香港各地。那么学校呢提供了非常相似但是不完全相同的汉语教育方法，因为呢我们有不同的儿童的群体进行个性化的教育。那么在西岛学校呢，我们有38个不同的民族，有60种口音。那么英语呢是我们共同的教学语言。从幼儿园到13年级，每个孩子呢都要学习汉语。那么13年级呢是我们最高年龄组别的名字，也就是18岁。那么在此期间呢，学习者呢将一直学习汉语的。在西岛学校，所有的孩子都将跟随我们6位来自中国大陆的老师团队学习普通话。那么所有的这些老师呢，都是在香港生活了6到25年的时间，他们自己本身都是以汉语为母语的人。那么而且大多数是在中国大陆的大学或者是香港的大学通过学习过我们的汉语和文学的硕士学位的。西岛学校的孩子呢，每个星期有3节中文课。那么孩子们呢会被安排到为他们提供最合适挑战级别的课程当中。对于一些学生来说，这将是一门母语的课程。那么老师呢会强调和发展这个口语和书面语，同时呢也将会学习我们中国的文学。那另一个学习的途径呢，是面向于接近母语口语的学习者。那么这意味着呢，它的意思就是学生呢有可能有明显的这个普通话的口语和书写的能力，但是由于目前生活的安排，可能在家中没有足够的普通话接触的机会，或者是普通话不是家里面的第一语言，所以呢，他们需要不同的学习方法和指导呢，才可以获得成功。那最后一个途径呢，就是将普通话作为外语学习的学生去提供的。我们非常自豪的是，我们的一些母语并非是英语的学生已经掌握了足够的技能，那可以在我们的母语课和文学课上进行学习。我们非常开心，其实每一年呢，有相当多的学生呢会把汉语作为他们的选修课，那么我们称为 A 选择；英语呢作为第2语言，我们称为 B 选择。那么这意味着呢，他们可以获得这个双语国际文凭学位。好，接下来的时间交给 Jennifer， 谢谢。
好，谢谢你 Vivian。Mr. Sammons, we will move on to the third question. For students coming from mainland China, where English is a second language, will ESF be able to offer a bridging program to bring up the level of English proficiency for the children before they join mainstream primary? Or is there an after-school or special program for students who need extra tutoring in English? Also, the second question is, do share with us the English and other academic assessment requirements for students applying to ESF for kindergarten, primary, and secondary, please.
Okay, so for the first question, the broad answer is yes, and parents should check on the website of each school or call the admissions tutor in each school to check what's available in each of the 22 locations. And that's because each of our schools approaches it in a different way to suit the needs of our learners. I will give you some examples from our school here at West Island to help understand this. So I have one student who has been brought up in Beijing all their life and has one Chinese parent and one English parent. They attend a school where Chinese is the medium of instruction. This student demonstrated clear fluency in the use of English with some grammatical and fluency errors which were understandable. And as a result of that, all of her teachers across the curriculum have been given strategies to use in the classroom, because errors like this will correct naturally over time as she spends more submersion in our English medium environment. Another student joined us with a strong Chinese mother tongue, and reports from their previous school demonstrated they were working very well in their first language in their Chinese-speaking school in Shanghai. The written assessment showed they had good ideas, but weren't able to express them fully in English. But that was okay, because we could see that the ideas were there. And as a result of that, the student took fewer optional classes and received some additional dedicated teaching. However, because the learner is very proficient in their first language, it hasn't taken them very long to identify and find the words and structures they need. And from August next year, they will not need these additional lessons. And finally, in my school, we accept students at age 13 or 14 who might need some more development, where there is only some basic spoken and written fluency in English. And there are up to 10 places each year in our intensive English learner pathway. And these students will take 50% of the regular curriculum and 50% with dedicated English language specialists. It will take about 2 to 2.5 years to acquire about 3,000 more academic words to successfully become independent in the future upper school curriculum at West Island School. Diversity and inclusivity is at the heart of everything we do in our admissions process and in our schools. And the only criteria for admissions at primary or secondary is that students must demonstrate sufficient English language skills or potential so they can benefit from our English medium language environment. Applicants are placed on a waiting list, and then they'll be invited for an assessment when vacancies become available. They'll be required to complete an age-appropriate assessment to determine their ability in English. So, for example, in my school, parents will meet with me, and I will ask questions about what parents believe are their child's interests, abilities, and any welfare concerns they wish to share with me. The young person will meet with my vice principal and another colleague and have a general discussion. And there'll be questions like, what do you like studying? What would your friends and teachers say about you? What are your hobbies and interests? And the purpose of the discussion is to understand fluency and use of language, and that a learner can engage to some extent in a conversational English. And finally, for secondary school, there is a written assessment where there's a short passage to read, followed by 12 multiple choice questions, some questions where learners have to fill in a missing word, and then finally they have to do an open-ended written piece of work.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Salmons. As we're conscious of time, I'm going to invite Vivian now to do the translation in Mandarin for the question and answer, and then we will move on to Mr. Howard Tuckett of Wycombe Abbey. Thank you, Vivian.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer and Mr. Chris. 好，我们第三个提问就是，对于来自英语为第二语言的中国大陆学生呢，英基是否能够在孩子们进入主流小学之前，为他们提供一个衔接的课程来提高他们的英语水平啊，或者是需要额外的英语辅导的学生，是提供一些课后的或者是特别的一个课程的安排吗？啊，我们的回答是这样，非常的详细啊。那么Chris 的回答是这样的，从广义上讲呢，我们第一个提问呢是肯定的。那么家长们呢可能希望查看每一所学校的网站，或者是给每所学校呢打电话，要求呢和我们的这个招生秘书联系，想要了解我们22个学校到底有哪些资源可以用。那么这是因为呢每一所学校呢都是以最适合学生的方式来处理这个问题呢。我们的父母可以确信的是呢，这是我们知道的，我们也有技能，我们在这方面呢也是非常成功的。那么 Chris 呢就讲了几个例子啊，他讲的有一个学生呢是在北京长大，父母一方是中国人，另一方是英国人。 那么他们就读的学校是以中文作为教学语言，那么这名学生呢，在使用英语方面表现出非常流利啊，但是呢，有一些语法和词汇的一些错误，所以呢，他上课的所有的老师呢，都会有一个指示会在课堂上去帮他纠正这一些问题，所以呢，这个学生呢是在课堂当中不知不觉就已经纠正了一些英语的一些小问题。还有一个学生呢是上海的，他加入了我们，那么他的汉语呢母语非常的强。那也有一个报告是他在上海的汉语学习呢，用母语呢学习的非常好。书面的评估也表示，也能够表明他们有很好的想法，但是呢，这个英文的知识不够，所以呢，他没有办法用英文很好的表达自己的想法。所以呢，这个学生呢，能够选读的这个选修课呢比较少，所以呢，他接受了一些额外的专门的教学。那么由于这位学习者呢非常精通他们的母语，所以呢他很快就能够识别并且找到了新学习语言的，比如说英语当中的一些单词和结构。那么从明年8月开始呢，他就不再需要这些额外的课程了，因为他的语言的学习呢已经取得了足够的进展。那么最后的话呢，我们会接受13到14岁的可能需要更多发展的一些学生。那么虽然呢需要具备一些基本的英语口语和书面表达的能力，但是我们的这个强化英语课程的学习呢，每年也会有10个的名额。那么这些学生呢，一半呢会与英语同龄人一起上课，那另一半呢会专注于发展语言的专业语言老师一起上课。那么这些学习者通常需要2年或者2年半的时间呢，能够完全掌握3000多个单词。那么这样的话，当他们说英语的时候呢，就可以跟同龄人呢回到课堂去可以更加的独立了。多样化和包容性呢，是我们英基教育的核心，所以我们入学的一个标准呢，就是学生必须具备足够的英语语言的技能，才能够从我们的英语的这个语言环境当中呢是受益的。那我们的申请者呢会被列入我们的候补名单，并且呢在有空缺的时候呢会邀请面试或者是评估。那么他们会被要求完成与他的年龄相适应的一个评估，来确定他能够参与英语课程的能力。那么在我们其中一个学校呢提出的评估呢分3个部分，那么家长呢分别为与每所学校的招生负责人去会面，那么分享孩子的一些信息，比如说孩子的优势、他的个性、健康的情况和兴趣爱好等等。那么学生呢也会与招生的负责人会面，他们会接受一些英语的提问，比如说请告诉我你的情况，你喜欢学习什么科目呢？告诉我你的老师和朋友是怎么形容你的呢？你的兴趣爱好是什么呢？那过去的几年你是怎么样管理的？你学到了什么呢？那么我们这些对话的目的呢，不是测试每个孩子，而是评估他们是否能够很好的理解并且参与这个英语的绘画。那么最后的话呢，我们的每一位学生呢进行一个书面的评估。那么我们会有1篇的短文需要他去阅读，有多项的选择题，有12个句子，要求呢学生选择一个缺少的单词，或者是有一个写作的任务。那么这个写作的任务呢是允许学生自由写作来回答问题，或者是根据提供的材料去写作的。那么我们的招生团队呢将始终以孩子的最大利益为出发点，评估目前英语的流利程度，以及在学校的配置当中支持和发展他们的能力。我们的这些评估不是用来筛选或者认知的能力的，因为我们不是一个只根据学生的能力来挑选学生的一个学校。好，接下来时间交给 Jennifer。
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Mr. Simons, for the wonderful presentation today. We definitely learned a lot about ESF, and as always, very impressive results from the schools, and also very, very insightful in terms of the presenting, and also like basically letting our parents know more about your school. If we have more questions from parents, we will definitely forward on to you. And thank you very much. Please have a good day. Now
thank you, Vivian.
Thank you. Now we shall move on to our next presenter, Mr. Howard Tuckett from Wycombe Abbey School, Hong Kong. Mr. Howard Tuckett, I would start off with the introduction, passing on to Vivian first for the Mandarin introduction of yourself. And then after that, I will do the introduction in English, and we will go on to the presentation. So Vivian, please do go ahead with the introduction in Mandarin.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. OK， 那么我们接下来介绍第2间学校是香港威亚学校。 那么大家都知道，他的母校是著名的英国威亚公学。那么英国威亚公学呢，是一所超过120年历史的私立寄宿女校，曾3度被《星期日泰晤士报》评为年度最佳学校。毕业生获得牛津和剑桥2所大学的录取比例常年是名列前茅的，每年有1/3的毕业生被这2所大学录取。威亚公学的教育特点不只有卓越的学术成就，学校呢也是致力于促进学童的创业和领导能力的培养，以及在体育、艺术等方面的一些发展。香港威亚学校呢，落户在香港仔田湾商场，是全日制的男女小学。它承继母校的优良学术传统，提供为香港学生度身打造的英式课程，同时呢，通过每日的课外活动建立学生的自信。那么接下来我介绍我们今天的主讲嘉宾，也是威亚学校的创始校长 Mr. Howard Tuckett。他是一位小学教育的专家，拥有教师、管家、体育教练和校长的经验。他拥有教育文凭和硕士学位，拥有超过38年的教育经验。Mr. Howard Tuckett 曾在联合学校小组担任14所预科学校的校长的协调员和ISI 学校的督察。他曾经担任2所独立学校的校长长达20年，并且担任 IAPS 培训课程的主任和演讲者。Mr. Howard Tuckett 在2019年移居香港，现在是担任香港威亚学校的创始校长。他已婚，有2个孩子。好，接下来的时间交给 Jennifer， 谢谢。
Thank you, Vivian. Now my introduction to Mr. Howard Tuckett in English. Mr. Howard Tuckett is the headmaster of Wycombe Abbey School, Hong Kong. He is a primary specialist with experience as a teacher, housemaster, sports coach, and headmaster. With the diploma and Masters of Arts in Education, he has over 38 years of experience as an educationalist. 21 of those years have been served as a headmaster at British prep schools. Howard has served as the coordinator of the 14 prep school heads in a United Learning Group and as an ISI school inspector. Howard has worked as a governor of 2 independent schools and has served as an IAPS Heads Training Course Director and Speaker. Mr. Howard moved to Hong Kong in 2019 to assume the role of founding headmaster of Wycombe Abbey School, Hong Kong. He is married with 2 children. I would like to invite Mr. Tuckett to please share your presentation slides and start your presentation. Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just looking for my share thing. There it is. I can see it. And I want just give me a moment there. Do I want one or two? This one? This one? This one? Second one. That one. All right. Can you see that, Jennifer?
We don't see the slides yet.
Hang on.
Oh, now we're seeing it. Yes,
okay,
we've got your slides.
That.
All good.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good. So good afternoon, everybody. My name's Howard Tuckett. It's really good to be with you, and good to share so much fantastic education that's available in Hong Kong. And our friends from ESF certainly do a great job in their many schools all around the island. Wycombe Abbey School, Hong Kong. We're very new to Hong Kong, although Wycombe Abbey itself is this year, in fact, 125 years old. So Wycombe Abbey have been providing outstanding education to youngsters for a very long time indeed. And as you just heard from both Vivian and Jennifer, I've been busy in the independent schools world in the UK and indeed in South Africa as a younger teacher before that, and Botswana, where I taught in an independent school as well. So very much a part of the independent school scene in various parts of the world, and now delighted to be operating in Hong Kong. So Wycombe Abbey School Hong Kong is in Britain what we would call a prep school, which means that we run from the age of 5, so year 1 in Britain, to the age of 13. I think I'm going to skip over this because I think the ladies covered this slide pretty well just now. We don't need to see that all over again. I've just spotted I'm wearing exactly the same suit, so I think you've seen enough of that for one day. And this is our deputy head, Feifei Yang, who I'll come on to in just a moment. But just to paraphrase what I was saying just now, Wycombe Abbey School is a prep school. We run from the age of 5, year 1 in the United Kingdom system, up to 13. Children can leave us at 11 if they wish to go into the normal secondary school systems, either here in Hong Kong possibly in the United Kingdom or other parts of the world, or if they can stay here till they're 13, where we have our common entrance curriculum course, which specifically prepares children for entry to British independent schools, to be boarders. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later on. So clearly I'm a Westerner. I'm about as English as you get, born in Epping in Essex originally and having traipsed all around the world. So the one subject at our school I know very little about, although I'm learning fast, is our second language, which is Mandarin Putonghua. And so whilst the head, myself, I know very little about the language, our deputy head will always be the head of Chinese language at the school. And currently we have with us Feifei Yang, who's our deputy head. And Feifei trained as a teacher and practiced as a teacher at Haberdasher Ask in London, and has since worked in international schools in various other parts of the world, and is a very well qualified Chinese linguist. We have a team of 7 members altogether in the Chinese teaching team. We rate the teaching of Chinese to be very important. Now, it's important to explain that we are not an international school. Our license in Hong Kong is that of a private school, and we are here to offer a British education to all Hong Kongers, whoever they may be. They could be expatriate, they could be local children, local Hong Kong families. They could indeed be from Chinese mainland who happen to be resident temporarily or otherwise in Hong Kong. We are here to provide that British education, so we are not limited by the quota system that the international schools have. Now, because we have elected to be here for all Hong Kongers, we have weighted our curriculum so that the teaching of Chinese gets exactly the same amount of time in the curriculum that maths does and that English does. So those 3 subjects in all years, from the little 5-year-olds right up to the 12, 13-year-olds, half of their school week is divided between maths, Chinese, and English. Each of those 3 subjects getting an equal weighting of time. In the teaching of Chinese, we pump 2 teachers, 2 qualified Chinese linguists into each class every lesson. So every day, each child is either getting a double period or a single period of Chinese. And I'll come back to the teaching of Chinese a little later on. I've got some more detailed information for you. More generally, our staff, being an English-based school, teaching the national curriculum for England and Wales in all respects, except, as I explained just now, the extra weighting we've given in terms of time to the teaching of Chinese. If we were purely a British prep school, we would probably give 1 or 2 periods a week to the teaching of French or Spanish, typically, if we were in England. But because we've picked up the model of a British prep school, put it down in Hong Kong for all Hong Kongers, we've given the Chinese that extra time. I've had to raid the timetable and take time off other subjects to give it to the discrete lessons of Chinese. But in all other respects, we are a British model prep school. All of our teachers are trained and experienced in teaching the British national curriculum of England and Wales, and enriched by the common entrance curriculum. Some of our teachers have come from other parts of the world, not directly from England. For example, we have some South Africans, Australians, New Zealanders from time to time, people from other parts of the world. So you can imagine the discussions about rugby that go on amongst our staff. But as you can see, a happy crew, all very well qualified. And we've got some of the badges of some of the universities that we attended between us, and the different nationalities that we represent on the staff. But regardless of where we came from, where we trained, what our university backgrounds are, the basic premise, the basic requirement for any member of staff here is that they understand and have experience and knowledge of teaching the national curriculum for England and Wales, and understand the British system, albeit in another part of the world. So it's lost my mouse, there we go. So coming back to the Wycombe Abbey schools, our school is one of 5 Wycombe Abbeys that exist. And very briefly here, you can see the original Wycombe Abbey in the top left-hand corner. So the original Wycombe Abbey in the town of High Wycombe, which is halfway between London and Oxford. So if you leave London and head about 10 o'clock, if you're looking at a clock face in a northwesterly direction, About halfway between London and Oxford, you come to the town of High Wycombe, and there you will find Wycombe Abbey, nestling pretty close to the centre of the town. And then on the top right-hand side, you can see our campus in Aberdeen, just where Aberdeen and Tin Wan meet. And then the three lower pictures show you pictures of our really big international school campuses in Changzhou, which is the one on the far left, in Hangzhou, and in Nanjing. And you can see from the right-hand side that the Hangzhou and Nanjing in particular are our two newest schools and have just opened in this academic year. So altogether, 5 Wycombe Abbey schools, and we run very closely together. Wycombe Abbey in England, although not wholly financially responsible for the schools in China, it holds responsibility and takes a lively interest, is probably the best way of describing it, excuse me, of our quality of education, of the quality of pastoral care, the quality of the safeguarding that we offer pupils. And we remain in very close contact with them, to the extent that actually one of their administration team actually works in our office here in Hong Kong. So we have one of the British school administrators working with us all the time very closely. So we, like all British national education models, we believe passionately that it is no good just ramming a child full of academic facts, because that's a fairly short-lived developmental journey. We believe that you need to educate the whole child, that you need a fully complete person in order for them to be able to succeed and to do the very best that their potential allows them to do academically. All other areas of their lives need to be well established and well balanced. So as I've already said, we teach the national curriculum for England and Wales. A good standard primary model and many other primary models around the world are based on it. We have enriched our particular curriculum by, when I wrote the curriculum, I added in everything that the ISEBs, the Independent Schools Examination Board, what they require for their common entrance. Now, common entrance, you'll be familiar with the term. It's been around since the year dot. It's the standard, the gold standard for assessing children moving from the primary schools to the British independent schools. Nowadays, not many schools actually use common entrance as an assessment for entry, but they all refer to it as a good standard to set their own examinations. And ISEB is still very much alive and well and assisting schools with all kinds of different assessment tools so that we make the right decisions. We give parents the right advice and find the best independent school in England, if that's what you're looking for, or Wales or Scotland. If that's where you're thinking about for your child, we have more than 500 top independent schools in the UK. There is going to be one that's the perfect fit for your child. Now, this school is not all about sending children to British secondary schools. We send children to Hong Kong secondary schools just as well, and we act as a prep and a feeder school to all other Hong Kong secondaries. And as parents let us know if they want to go to one of the ESF schools, to Kellett, to Harrow, to Malvern, we will, Canadian, whichever one it is, we will, as long as we know and we're advised, we will prepare your child accordingly. I think it's fair to say, please don't assume that just because you're coming to Wycombe Abbey, we expect you to go to a British boarding school. But it is the case that a lot of children do come to us at least wanting to find out more about that possibility, even if parents later on decide to stay here in Hong Kong. The main medium of instruction at our school is English. We model beautifully spoken English in all of our lessons. In our Chinese lessons, which I said earlier, we have one every day, 7 periods a week, the children will hear beautifully modeled Putonghua spoken by Chinese-speaking people who are native speakers themselves. We do not have a bilingual mixed-up mishmash of language. I have a horror of bilingual education. I went through bilingual education myself as a child, and in my experience, children end up speaking 2 languages badly. What we need to do is be very clear what we're trying to achieve. At this school, we're trying to model beautiful English and beautiful Chinese, and the best way to do that is to do that separately in their designated times so that we don't get this blur between the language. We don't develop a school slang of the 2 languages. 9 lessons a day, and then, as I'll be coming on to a little later, after every day, there are then 2 hours of extracurricular activities available, and I'll give you a little bit more detail about that in a moment. So our 14 languages that we offer, here they are on the slide. Some may take a little explanation: English, Chinese, math, science. STEAM is our version of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So we teach science discretely, we teach maths discretely, and then as a separate subject, we teach STEM. We call it iSTEAM at Wycombe Abbey because we've included all our information technology, or what used to be called computer science, is now part of STEM. We've added the A to the STEM to make STEAM, and the A stands for artistic and for application. It's all very well being clever. My question is to pupils and to teachers, okay, so you can do this robotic stuff, so what? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to design? What can you come up with that's useful, that's beautiful, that's going to further people and the quality of their lives? So it's the application and the design and the art side of technology. So we thought the A was worth adding. We've just had a brilliant week. So all the classes in their STEAM classes have been programming drones to fly through Quidditch hoops, and the children came to school in their Harry Potter outfits. They designed each of our 4 houses, Phoenix, Lion, Dragon, and Griffin, all designed their house wands, and we printed out the wands on 3D printers. So each child had their own house wand and their own house color. And just in case the technology failed and the drones that they programmed were flying through the hoops to see who'd found the quickest route, of course, if you point your wand at it, it just makes sure that nothing can fail. So lots of fun there. We're still waiting to hear which house did best. ICT is part of STEAM, history, geography, speech and drama, really straightforward, art, music. PSHE, and then religious education is the one that's not here, I can't see it, it should be on there. Religious education, it's important to point out because it's easily to confuse. Because we're Wycombe Abbey, sometimes people assume we're a church school. We're not. The Abbey is a very old building on the original Wycombe Abbey site in England. We have no church foundation at all. We, like all British-based schools, we teach religious education, but all we're doing is teaching children what it is that people around the world believe. If you're going to study history or you're going to study politics, you really need to know what different people believe, because so many of the conflicts, so many of the issues we study in history and politics or even geography come from what it is that people hold dear, what are their firmly held beliefs. So we teach children what people who, for example, believe in Buddhism, what is it they actually believe? What is it? Difference between Judaism and Christianity and Islam, and whatever the other main religions and beliefs and tenets around the world are, so that our children are informed as they go into these other content subjects. So our Chinese, coming back to our Chinese curriculum, which I started to talk about just now, the curriculum is adapted from mainland Chinese curricula. So these are standard curricula that are taught in the mainland. And we stream each class, as I said, for each lesson, 2 Chinese teachers go into every class, every lesson, and children are streamed into a native speaking ability group or a non-native speaking ability group. And of course, local children who are Cantonese speaking very often are in the non-native speaking group because they don't hear much Mandarin anywhere else. So it's not really a cultural thing, it's just whatever children's prior experience has been. We have European children who spent years in Shanghai who are almost fluent. And they, of course, are in the native speaking group. Excuse me. We thought long and hard when we designed the school about what model of Chinese we would teach, because as you can imagine, there are all kinds of different combinations. And having been in this job as long as I have a very clear idea that you make your choice, you teach what you think is the best, most applicable model, and you stick to it. And you don't drift off course and start teaching a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and let's try a bit of IB, and oh, we'll just throw a bit of Cantonese one day a week. We should either teach pure Cantonese or we should teach pure Mandarin. But we don't try and be all things to all men. There are so many schools in Hong Kong that parents have the choice to choose what they want. So we have chosen to teach Putonghua, and we teach simplified characters. And the reason we chose that is that we feel we are educating the young Hong Kongers who will be the business people in Hong Kong. A lot of our pupils, as I said before, might go off to boarding schools in other parts of the world, or indeed universities in other parts of the world. But we're working on the premise that when they're qualified, they're coming back to Hong Kong, that they will want to have their lives and live their lives in Hong Kong and be doing business and conducting themselves professionally in Southeast Asia. And the best tool we can give them for that is to be able to speak beautiful Mandarin and to be able to write in the language of business, which is the simplified text characters. Having said that, a lot of the Mandarin we teach, a lot of the Chinese we teach is taught from Chinese poetry, Chinese literature, and of course a lot of that is presented in traditional texts. So our children are seeing traditional texts, they have contact and reference to traditional text, but moving forward, they're learning to write in simplified. Now, of course, several of our local Cantonese children, of which we have a large proportion of the school, come to us knowing already how to write in traditional text to some level. And if they can write in traditional text, they're welcome to continue. We would never stop them. But going forward, we teach them to write in simplified. I mentioned earlier our after-school ECAs, extracurricular activities. At the moment, I think we're running close to 60 different clubs in a week, as far as we can, or as far as we can. With obviously, children have to be at a certain vaccination level to take part. And on this slide, you can see a sample of the many clubs and activities we offer. Some of the other ones we offer, which maybe aren't quite as exciting, maybe as Lego or climbing the wall. Oh, apparently we have the highest climbing wall in a school in Hong Kong at this school. So when you come on your tour, you'll be shown that, I'm sure. In fact, you can't miss it, it's enormous. But maybe some of the other more cerebral clubs, we have a distinct club for those children who are preparing for boarding in the UK, and we're not preparing them academically necessarily in that club. We're preparing them for what it's going to be like to be a teenager in UK, which is very different to being a teenager in Hong Kong. We're talking about preparing them culturally so that we can help them absorb any culture shock they may feel when they move. And we run a specific club and activity for that. We run homework club in both sessions every day. So the idea, Mum and Dad, is that your child comes to school at about 10 to 8, comes into the school, has a great day at school. If they're studying music, we will work in their music lesson, whatever instrument they're studying. They will get their music lesson during the week. And then after school, they can do some football or some rugby, some swimming, some cake making, some artwork, whatever it is, do some rock climbing and go to homework club. And when you pick them up or they go home on the bus at 5 o'clock, that's it. The day is done. If we've done our job right, you will not have to go screaming around Hong Kong in the evening, dropping children off to special lessons and special classes, because we'll have done everything at school. And you as a family then get to spend quality time together for a few hours. Your children can get to bed at a good hour, and we can start the next day ready to go again at 100 miles an hour within a good balanced time frame of the 24-hour day, having been broken down supportively for them. Now, we have an intensive English program. This has been a huge success. So children who come to us who are clearly very bright and able to meet the academic criteria of joining the school, if they can't speak English or can't speak much English, that is absolutely no problem at all. They come into our intensive English program. Now, we've been running the intensive English program for 18 months now. We've had probably 12 children who've done the full program. We have another tier or another raft, if you like, of children who can speak some English but just need some support, and we give them a gradient or a graded support. But for the children who are fully immersed in the IEP program, the intensive English program, our experience is that after 2 terms, they are ready to go back into their main classes. They have sufficient English that they can hang on to what's going on, and they're not just abandoned and left to go into the class. They're still getting one-to-one support, but they're then getting it in their own classroom rather than in the intensive English room. When they're in the intensive English room for the first 2 terms, they're in there while their own classes are doing English, Chinese, math, not Chinese, English, maths, history, geography, but they will join their own classes for Chinese, for PE, for drama, for music, for the more community-based lessons, so that learning to make friends with all the new friends, they're keeping in touch with their buddies, if you like. But for all the other lessons, we're intensively teaching them English. And this isn't just for Chinese children from the mainland. For example, the first 2 children who we assisted came from Switzerland. They were Swiss German. We've had other children with all sorts of other languages as well. But obviously in this part of the world, mostly we're talking about children who are either purely Cantonese speaking or purely Mandarin speaking, who just need that help to get their English kick-started, if you like, to give them every opportunity. But in our experience, 2 terms and they've got enough English and they can cope in the classroom with some support. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a very active common entrance program to assist children who are transferring to British boarding schools at the age of 11 or at the age of 13. And that decision is very often driven by the school you're going to, whether they accept children at 11 into their boarding or at 13. Just for information, the picture we're looking at is Lancing College, just outside Brighton. And we are finding that this has become very popular. We have a very active year 7, we have a very active year 8, and the problem is if children are starting at 13 in a British boarding school and they finish their primary school in Hong Kong at 11, what you do for those 2 years, it's a bit of an anomaly. If you come to us, we will be helping you actively with all your registrations. We know all the registrars, I know many of the heads, I know most of these schools. And we are not any kind of agency. We don't charge you any more. We don't have deals or contacts with any other particular school. I've had 2 meetings with parents in here today, and we've looked at whole lists of different options for 2 completely different pupils, and I know that both of them will be very well placed. And we've had some success. As I said at the beginning, we're a brand new school. We're at the end of our 3rd year. These are the schools that in the last 2 years, last year we only had 2 girls, we only had a year 6 last year. This year has been our first year of year 7 and year 8. And so just with the 2 girls last year and the 28 applications we've made this year, these are the schools that our children have had offers from this year. And actually this I could add 2 more schools to this now as well. So we are very, very pleased. And to get into some of these schools, particularly schools like Wycombe Abbey, Cheltenham Ladies College, Benenden, Malvern St James, Queen's College London, these are really Caterham, really, really selective schools. It's very hard to get in. Caterham took 4 boys in at 13 plus this year. We got 1 of them. Last year, Wycombe Abbey offered 4 places to girls in Hong Kong, and we got 2 of the 4. We do not have a special deal with Wycombe Abbey in England. Our girls do not get a free ride into Wycombe Abbey in England, but your children, if they come here, are being prepared on the curriculum that all the top British prep schools are following. So they're on the right trajectory, they're studying the right content, they're on the same curriculum as all other top prep schools, and they are being taught by teachers who've come from that system. So as far as you can be prepared, you are, and the head of Key Stage 3, Andy Parr, and myself are expert and very experienced in dealing with all of these schools and assisting you, mum and dad, in making the choices you want to make. And then once you've made your choices, in helping you with all the applications and helping prepare your child for interviews, for examinations, and everything else that needs to be done. I'm very happy. Do come and have a cup of coffee with me. Very happy to talk to you about that. So, our application system is very straightforward. There we are, the good old QR code. If you click on that, it'll take you straight to our admissions site where Kerry Morris, our admissions officer, will be ready to help you. We do two schools a day, physical tours, so either do join us at 10:30 or 2:30. We can do the tour in English, in Cantonese, or in Mandarin, and give you as much help and as much detail, and you can come for as many tours as you like. It's also important to point out we do not charge for admissions, we do not charge for assessment. We don't believe in making money out of you while you're asking questions. So all of this is easily accessible to you. We have quite a quick turnaround time. We understand that these are stressful times. I couldn't believe when I came to Hong Kong how stressful getting into a school is. I've never come across anything like it, and it doesn't need to be that way. So in designing the school, I have made the application and assessment process as stress-free, as sensible, as accurate and as helpful as we can possibly make it. So you can see the details there on the slide. We will get you a decision within a matter of days, and then it's really over to you, but we're always here to help you with the decision making. So as I said just now, Kerry Morris is our admissions officer. She'll be very happy to hear from you. When you come on a tour, I will always be around to meet you. Sometimes I will take the tour, but I will always meet you and say hello and answer any questions that you have. And I look forward to meeting you when you come to see us and to taking your questions. I think it's fair to say this has been a flying visit to Wycombe Abbey School. I've gone quite quickly, and maybe the questions will help that are about to follow will help you to focus on things that are of more specific interest. But do contact us and we can give you whatever details you like. And I look forward to hearing your questions. Thank you very much, Jennifer and Vivian.
Thank you, Mr. Tuckett. Thank you for the wonderful presentation, especially on the impressive boarding school results that was secured.
Yeah, we're very proud of those, I have to say.
Excellent, excellent. A very, very good list of schools. Cheltenham Ladies, Malvern St. James Stores, all very, very top schools in the UK. So from here, we will move on to our Q&A session. I will first pose the question in English and then invite Mr. Tuckett to answer in English. After that, we will have Vivian translate the question into Mandarin and also the answers into Mandarin. So now moving on to the first question. We know Wycombe Abbey Hong Kong is a co-ed school, whilst Wycombe Abbey UK is an all-girls school. Aside from this difference, are there any other differences in the curriculum of the school? How many of your teachers are from the school in the UK or trained in the UK? And does Wycombe Abbey Hong Kong enjoy the same level of prestige and advantage with boarding schools and universities in the UK? Will Wycombe Abbey Hong Kong students be given priority by Wycombe Abbey UK when applying for boarding school there?
Yeah, that question always comes up. So I knew that one would come. So there's quite a few questions there. Remind me, Jennifer, if I miss any of the aspects. So yeah, the difference between Wycombe Abbey in the UK and Wycombe Abbey in Hong Kong. Well, let's start with what's the same. The things that are the same are the adherence to academic excellence, the quality of teaching, the quality of school management, pupil care, pastoral care, and safeguarding. These are universal areas of excellence at any Wycombe Abbey school. And Wycombe Abbey in the UK conducts quality control consistently on all of those factors, if that makes sense. The two schools, this particular school and Wycombe Abbey in the UK, are about as different as you can get in terms of profile, because as your guest has just pointed out, Wycombe Abbey in the UK is a girls' boarding secondary school. We are a co-ed day primary school or prep school running to 13. So we have very little overlap. So no, none of our teachers have ever taught at Wycombe Abbey, although I have umpired lacrosse at Wycombe Abbey on many occasions, but I don't think we really count that as teaching. But because our teachers, frankly, I wouldn't really expect to interview a secondary specialist teacher. What I want are primary specialist teachers who really know what they're doing with this age group. So you could have the best, secondary subject teacher from Wycombe Abbey who would be pretty out of their depth teaching a year 4 class, 5 or 6 different subjects, and knowing all of the pastoral skills that you need for children of that age. So we need specialist dedicated teachers for this age group. So because the two curriculum areas or age groups of the two schools don't overlap, no, we do not have a cross parity of staff, but we do have very close relationships with them. So as I said in my presentation, one of their administration members actually works here in our office. I am in constant communication with all the toing and froing with their registrar. Jo Duncan, the head, and I are in fairly regular contact as needs be. Her secretary and I are actually in more contact. And other members of staff, their head of safeguarding teachers, runs training for our teachers. So I think as far as there usefully can be an interaction between the two, there is. And as I also said in the presentation, our girls do not get an automatic transfer to Wycombe Abbey in the UK. They need to pass in. And as we know that Wycombe Abbey and Cheltenham Ladies College are probably the two most academically selected schools in the United Kingdom. So it's not the right school for everybody. And when Kat Sutherland Hoare, who's the registrar there, and I are talking about pupils, our discussion is always about what is best for the pupil. It's not about the school. The schools are made of stone. They can stand anything. What we've got to make sure is we don't put a child into an environment that's going to become destructive and miserable for them. This has got to be an environment where they flourish and they do really well and become an amazing person. And if you put a child into a school where it's just going to be too hard, too fast, too much, we'll destroy that spark. And there are so many other brilliant schools for children to go to. So, and Wycombe Abbey, if any of the Wycombe Abbey colleagues from, they will be saying exactly the same thing as I'm saying now. But by being at this school, you are studying what all the top, so for example, there's a really good girls prep school in the town of High Wycombe called Godstow. And I know the head there well. And in fact, when I was an inspector, I inspected the school. That we are teaching exactly the same curriculum as they are, taught by teachers trained in the same places that they are. So in Hong Kong, what we've done is we've picked up this British prep school and put it in Hong Kong so that you have this portal, if you like, to get into British education from a British prep school that's right here on your doorstep. Having said all that, only 3 of my girls have applied to Wycombe Abbey, and so far, all 3 have got in. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Excellent, excellent. That's very true. Finding the best fit school for the student is more important than finding
absolutely.
one.
Absolutely, it's critical.
Yes,
critical.
Excellent.
Not to belabor the point, but I have spent too many hours of my life talking to destroyed 15 and 16-year-olds who went to the wrong school, where I have, in other parts of my career, I've gone in to try and help them re-establish. And they're just at schools they should never have been sent to. And it's a very sad thing when it happens. And I will do all I can to make sure that never happens on my watch.
Great, agree. So I'd like to invite Vivian to translate the question in Mandarin and also do a quick summary of the answers as well for Mr. Tuckett.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer and Mr. Howard Tuckett. 那么刚刚我们进行了第一个题目的一个回答。那么我们的题目就是，我们知道香港威亚学校呢是一所男女的学校，而英国的威亚学校呢是一所女子学校。除了这一点的差异之外呢，学校的课程呢是否还有其他的差异呢？那么学校教师团队当中有多少人是来自英国或者是在英国接受培训？那香港威亚学校是否有与英国寄宿学校以及大学同等学校的一些声誉和优势呢？香港威亚学校的学生在申请英国威亚学校的时候，是不是会被优先的录取呢？现在来总结一下刚刚Mr. Howard Tuckett 的一个回答。那他刚刚说到是2个学校的一些不同，但是有一点非常重要的，就是我们不是看这个学校是什么，而是我们要为我们的孩子选择最适合他们的学校和课程。那么香港威亚学校呢，是教授我们英格兰和威尔士的国家的课程，那么基本上是跟英格兰的课程是相同的，而且我们的教师呢都是来自于英国，那么在英联邦国家的教育部门接受过培训，或者是他们在那边工作过的。那英国的威亚学校呢是非常的很有优势因为在香港呢，我们也开设了相当于英国的预科学校的一些课程。那么英国的这个威亚学校呢是超越了我们所有的这些年级，他们达到了 A 级的水平。那香港威亚学校呢，在申请英国威亚学校的时候呢，有没有优势呢？那么首先呢，这个问题呢，跟男孩子是没有关系，因为英国的威亚学校呢是一所女子的学校。那么对于女孩子来说呢，香港的威亚学校呢是不会自动把女孩子呢直接转到英国的威亚学校的。但是呢，我们的女孩子呢都是非常的优秀，他们是由在英国教育体系当中接受的培训过的老师来教授他们的预科，所以呢，他们是按照同样的课程去进行了准备，所以我们的女孩子呢是准备的相当的好，是高于英国的威亚学校的入学标准的。那么到现在为止呢，我们当中有女孩子呢已经获得了那个英国威亚学校的一些入学的资格。那么以上呢就是我们刚刚Mr. Howard Tuckett 他回答的一些重点。好，那么接下来的时间交给 Jennifer 来看我们第2个问题是什么，谢谢。
Thank you, Vivian. Mr. Tuckett, we will move on to the second question. I have visited Wycombe Abbey many times in the past, and each time I'm amazed with the facilities, teaching faculty and student body that the school embodies. For some of our parents and students from China, English is a second language versus Mandarin. Can you tell us what support can Wycombe Abbey give to students transferring from China in terms of boosting the level of English proficiency, please? Secondly, for those who look to pursue further studies in the UK, would Wycombe Abbey Hong Kong prepare the student for A-levels or IB or both?
Thank you. Well, being a prep school, we don't teach IB or A-levels, but we do prepare children to enter those schools. So just coming back to the beginning of your question, as I was saying in the presentation, if children come to us not speaking any English in the primary phase, so this would be for year 3, 4, 5, so from about the ages of 8 through to 9, 9.5, 10, we still have time, and we will put the children into our intensive English class. And basically during their time with us, they will learn enough English that they can access the curriculum which is taught in English. Children who join us after the age of 11, we probably don't have enough time to do that along with everything else they need to learn. So the IE, the intensive English, is only really available in the standard primary school years. But assuming we get somebody joining us between anywhere from 5 up to say 11, there is time for them to join the intensive English program. Without going through all that again, we would help them to become sufficiently proficient in English that they can access the curriculum. And of course, at the same time, working in parallel, we're working on their maths, their science, their English, and everything, their content subjects, history, geography, so that they are of a standard to be able to apply and do well in the entry assessments for any of the top English schools. Now, whether schools accept children of varying English really depends on the school. Some British boarding schools have an active policy of reserving places for a number of international students, a ratio of international students, and they accept that these international students will have English as a second language and that school will need to provide some support. Other boarding schools are most, could be mostly populated by British boarders, and they expect anybody from abroad, from other countries, to be able to speak English as well as they do, and they don't necessarily have a support. So really that's where our expertise comes in finding the right schools for you and advising mum and dad, is it worth applying to this school or to that school? Do they have the program? Do they have the facility? Do they have the support for children who are emerging English speakers, but really academically capable in every respect? And it's just about the language.
Okay, great. That's good to know, actually. So for, I guess, like in terms of the British curriculum, it's not really specific grooming them for taking the A-levels later on in high school or IB. It's just
It is mostly, so most British schools teach the IGCSE A-level course. There is IB in the UK. Sevenoaks School, for example, is a champion school for IB, but there aren't many of them. I think it's fair to say. A few schools have tried to run IB together with A-level, Portsmouth Grammar being an example. And I think this year they've finally just given it up. They can't keep doing both. And actually, there were so few students who wanted IB. IB tends to be more of a European model and is, of course, is easily transferable to the United States model. Basically, British as England, it tends to be, I mean, it's a wicked generalization, but it tends to be the case that Great Britain is an A-level country, and IB tends to be the rarity, but there are schools that offer it if that's important to you. Of course, the universities take both. Schools that teach IB always have to translate their results into A-level language for the university registrars to understand. But sometimes I think the universities could try a bit harder in that respect, but that's between them and the senior schools.
Got it. Thank you. Yes, I'd like to invite Vivian to translate the questions and answers into Mandarin, please. Thank you, Vivian.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. 我们刚刚的第二个提问就是有家长问到，他过去多次访问香港威亚学校，那每一次的访问呢，对于学校的设施啊、教职员工和学生的团体呢，都感到非常的惊讶以及满意。那么对于我们一些家长 一些家长和来自中国的学生来说呢，英语呢是第二的语言。那么告诉我们，威亚学校在提高英语水平方面呢，可以为来自中国的学生提供哪一些支持呢？那其次的话呢，对于那些希望在英国继续深造的学生来说，香港威亚学校为学生准备 A 级或者 IB 课程呢，或者香港威亚学校会不会为学生准备这个 A 级或者是 IB 的课程，或者是两者都有呢？好，我们来总结一下 Mr. Howard 的一个回答。那么香港威亚学校呢是以这个英语为媒介的一个学校。那么除了这个汉语课程之外呢，我们其实他刚刚在 presentation 里面也提到，是我们所有的课程呢其实都去模仿口语非常流利的英语，或者是口语非常流利的汉语。那么这个的话呢而且我们的汉语的教学呢是用这个普通话和这个简体字的。那么对于来自中国大陆的学生呢，如果他们习惯用汉语学习，并且这个英语水平相对来说比较低的话呢，我们学校是有一个刚刚看到有一个 IEP， 就是强化英语的课程，来帮助这些学生呢从以汉语为主的一个教学环境过渡到我们以英语教学的一个环境。那么这其实是属于一个过渡性的一个计划。那么学生呢会接受密集的英语的课程，然后呢目的呢就是让他们可以尽快的融入我们英语学习环境当中。我们的课程老师呢是为学生呢准备很好的融入的主流课程。那么我们刚刚有提到，就是在从2020年以来这一个计划呢我们的表现是学生通常1到2个月的学期1到2个学期的时间呢就能够完全完成了这个过渡。那么对于那些希望在英国深造的学生呢，由于我们的学校提供英格兰和威尔士的国家课程，那么默认情况下呢我们的学生将通过英国普通中等教育的证书 GCSE 或者是 A 级教育途径去进行学习的。那么具体来说呢，对于针对11岁以上或者是13岁以上的进入英国的学校的学生，已经有一个中学的指导计划，那么去帮助学生选择学校、申请和准备考试的。那么并且向他们去教授英国文化和一般的礼仪，帮助我们这些学生去顺利的过渡到去英国深造。OK， 那这是我们第二个问题的一个 summary 一个总结哈。接下来时间交给 Jennifer， 我们进行第3个问题，谢谢。
Thank you, Vivian. Now, as I'm mindful of the time right now for the next speaker, so Mr. Tuckett, I'll move on to the last question. For students who have a strong interest in the performing arts, STEM or music, can you tell us about the ECA program at Wycombe Abbey, Hong Kong, and what support or programs you have in place for those students who want to pursue these subjects in secondary education or even universities? For example, things like scholarships, competitive training, participation in national or international competitions, etc. In terms of the admission process, will these talents or skills be considered an advantage for the student applying to Wycombe Abbey, Hong Kong as well?
Yes, certainly. Thank you. So the first thing to say is that we don't just cover these subjects as part of our extracurricular program. We teach all of those subjects in our core curriculum. So we have a dedicated speech and drama and dance department. We have the studios, we have the floor space, we have ballet bars, we have mirrors, we have curtains. We've got a full drama department. And drama, speech and drama is a critical subject. How many of us as young professionals had to stand up for the first time to make a presentation without any prior at a place of work, without any prior training? Our children are trained to present, they're trained to take on the persona of another character, they're trained to empathize with how a character might feel and to learn to project that for other people to understand. So the confidence, the standing, the physical strength, the way to breathe, to speak, these are all life skills. These are all skills to further children's professional development or to develop them ready for their professions when they start. So we teach speech and drama, and then we offer theatre and we offer dance. I think we've got 3 different dance clubs running at the moment. I'll find out what hip hop is one of these days. Hip hop, K-pop and ballet, I believe, were the last 3 dance clubs I heard about. There was Irish dancing going on at one point as well. But of course, these different clubs all come and go at different terms. Music, we have a very active music program. We have 2 large music studios for class music. All children go to I think it's 2 music lessons a week, class music lessons a week. And then for those children, which is about half the school, who are learning one instrument or another, a woodwind, a brass or a string instrument, we have one-to-one tutors coming into the school, provided by a company who provide all these expert musicians, these expert tutors. And we then organize, we have 5 different tuition stroke rehearsal rooms, and we organize for the children to meet with their teacher during school time. And then after school, as I was saying earlier, lessons finish at 3 o'clock, and then we have all these clubs, and you can do it all again at club level if it really is your thing, and you really want to get into a drama production or learn to dance properly or act or whatever it is, or indeed practice music further as part of a band or a group, orchestra, whatever it is, choirs, different choirs running, all of that is available again as part of the ECA program. Did that cover all of it?
Yes, I know Wycombe Abbey has a variety of different ECA programs, which is wonderful for parents and kids because it just saves a lot of travel time after school. We just stay back and have the ECAs.
That's the idea.
Very good to know. Yes. So I'd like to invite Vivian to do a quick summary of the question in Mandarin and also the answers in Mandarin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer and Mr. Howard Tuckett. 好，那么刚刚有第3个提问，就是对于表演艺术STEM 或者是音乐有浓厚兴趣的一些学生，能不能告诉我们香港威亚学校的 ECA 计划，就是课外活动计划是怎么样的，以及你认为那些想在中学或者大学学习这些科目的学生提供了哪些支持或者是计划呢？比如说有奖学金竞争培训或者是参加国家或者是国际的比赛等等。那么在录取的过程当中，这些才能或者是技能是否会被视为申请香港威亚学校的一些优势呢？那么刚刚 Mr. Howard Tuckett 呢，他就讲到了我们的核心的课程包括有很多，比如说音乐剧，那通过我们学习表演培养孩子的这个自信能力以及他的技能，以及培养他的这个专业的能力。那么学校在这方面呢也提供了很多的支持，包括有可能带学生去到戏院里面去教授，还有其他的话呢有跳舞一些表演。那音乐的话呢有2大的音乐的课程，然后让这个教师在学校期间呢能够带领学生去表演一些话剧、舞剧等等。那么我们看到这些课程的安排是相当的丰富的。那另外稍微再提一下呢，就是香港威亚学校呢，它的在正常的上课期间呢，我们的学生呢都会学习到刚刚提到的戏剧、STEM 和音乐。那么所有的这些课程呢都是核心的课程，也是必修的课程。那么从下午呢有2个小时的时间呢是这个课外活动的环节，有超过40多种的这个活动呢是给孩子们去选择的。那么特别是在计算机技能、公共表演辩论、音乐剧等等呢，是有更多的一些机会给到孩子们去学习，或者去掌握这个音乐的技能。那么这个的话呢，是为他们高中阶段呢这些科目呢，是做好一个更好的开端或者是一个准备。好，那么以上呢就是我们刚刚的一个问题的一些总结。好，谢谢，时间交给 Jennifer。 Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vivian. Thank you, Mr. Tuckett, for joining us today. Thank you
very much, ladies,
for the wonderful presentation. And if we have further questions from the parents, we will definitely pass on to you at Wycombe Abbey.
Yeah,
and now
very welcome.
Thank you very much. Have a good day. Have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. You too.
Thank you. Now we will move on to Mr. Tommy Lai, who will be the speaker of Protection Limited and Immigration Consultant in Hong Kong. So I'd like to invite Vivian to proceed with the introduction, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. 好，我们 PPT 去到下一页。那么接下来呢，是我们 OK，next。
好，大家好。
没有了，等一下我介绍一下这个 PPT 可以去到下一章吗？接下来呢是我们这个讲座的压轴的一个环节。那么根据以往的这个经验呢，有不少的家长呢是比较关心来香港读书是怎么样签证的。那么今天呢，我们请来了移民咨询机构信德堡移民专家。那么信德堡移民专家，我们可以去下一章，我们介绍一下他的总裁陈嘉丽小姐，是获得了2020年 大湾区杰出女企业家的称号。那么同时呢，我们看到她的头衔也是丝绸之路国际交流促进会的会董，大湾区游学天地的荣誉理事，香港中小企业联合会移民委员会的主席，大湾区企业专才学院的创办人等等。好，下一章。那么今天呢，我们的讲座呢将会邀请到我们的黎家杰先生Tommy Lai。那么他是香港企业信的保德信移民专家有限公司区域业务总监那么接下来的时间交给我们的黎先生，欢迎，谢谢。
好，因为现在是用你们的 PPT， 所以麻烦你们帮我，如果是需要下一版的时候帮我当配好不好？谢谢你Vivian。好，谢谢各位。我今晚谈一谈就下一版了，可以，因为我们公司简单介绍，这可以下一版。这是简单介绍我们公司，主要刚才Vivian 也介绍过我们的其中一位这个创办人就是 Christina 陈嘉丽小姐，另外就是冯先生，他们两个在2011年创办了保德信。另外就是下一版，就是我们最重要就是我们做移民来香港这一块，最主要就是我们有3位比较前入境区香港入境区的高官，他们分别是刘先生六小姐跟这个叶汉奇先生，他们3位也是高官。另外就是他们在处理跟配合这个申请到香港入境的一些申请跟这个计划书这些操作，他们非常有经验。刘先生跟Connie 他们2位在入境区已经工作超过30年了，现在就是我们公司的顾问来处理不同的个案，所以我们在处理这一块就是在香港现在在市场上是最有经验的。好，下一版。好，刚才也有说过刚才介绍过 Christina， 我在这里简单，我们拿过很多奖，所以 TVB 跟这个香港新产业促进区也有颁过奖项给我们这些奖项也是我们在这几年得到这个市场上的认同，所以我们在这块也是在香港挺有名气的。下一版。好另外就是这个媒体跟这个一些高峰会也是找我们一同来跟他们分享，现在因为疫情的关系，所以现在只能够在线上跟大家分享。好，下面了。好，这是上面一些可以一路的往下就是全媒体的访问这些事情不介绍太多了。好，那我们只是最主要是我们现在我们做这一块的时候我们主要说捐才，就是这个计划就是内地输入捐才内地人才的计划，这一块我们是自己跟这个移民局来沟通，就是我们要根据他们的要求，根据申请人的一些背景来再配对一些公司给他们。这个操作我们可以说这是一个商务方。另外就是刚才我们说有一个最专业的团队，因为刚才说就是有3位前入境区的专家跟我们一同来处理这些申请，所以我们在这一块这个成功率是非常高的。下一版。对了，就是我们根据宪法我们做的，因为现在我们知道就是在市场上，比如说在内地还是在香港也有很多是代理公司，他们只是在中间，就是有中间人，他们接触这个客人，这个客人再找他们再找我们来处理这些申请，所以我们一般就是可以自己根据这个宪法跟这个项目，我们是在自己跟这个做这个计划书，跟政府部门来处理这个申请的最终的终端的处理人，所以在这一部分我们是为什么在市场上我们有这个优势在来帮助我们的客户来做这个申请。好，那这是一些数字，就是我们2021年成功得到成功配合的一些数字，比如说捐才我们有大概150个，另外就是优才奇难财政，就是一些之前有申请但是 具备了，我们再帮助我们的申请人再重新申请来拿到成功的拿到这个签证。另外就是ING 就是来香港读书的这一块，我们也大概也有100个，所以我们在这一方面在今年这个数字我想现在差不多半年了，但是这个数字已经差不多超过一半了，所以我们在处理这一块我们的经验就是我们的领导的这个地位的一个膨胀。好，这是我们一般帮助我们的客户。为什么我们跟我们的客户说，一般就是为什么找我们，就是如果你找了一些代理，他们帮你处理，为什么如果是有问题发生拒配的时候那就麻烦了，因为我们要做很多事情，再重新再把这个个案再弄，所以在这一块做这个申请就比较麻烦了。好，那我们一般在下一版了，因为我们现在大家知道，就是这个部分也是现在在中国也是有这个公证，在申请时候现在也是非常麻烦，所以在这一部分我不在这里长谈，因为今天的时间比较紧吧，所以我们知道就跟大家说，就是现在也是在处理这个申请，也要一定的要求跟这个实践，所以在这里我也简单的跟大家介绍一遍。好，下一版。好，就是这个公证的问题了。我想也是有一个正文书发出来，就是在说这一块，就是有一定的难度出来了。好，下一版。好，这些就是从前的一些沟通的一些我们再可以下一版再介绍其他另外就是现在大家都知道，就是没有中国的拿中国护照不容易到外国去，这是也是一个非常大的问题。所以现在很多人为什么要先来香港，就是香港一般给是 direct 拿这个海外的护照是比较容易一点，所以在很多人现在就先拿中国的香港的身份来，在将来如果是有其他的打算再去海外去了。下一版。好的就是刚才我说了，就是要做这个香港的申请。然后香港现在有什么方法呢？就下一版我简单的介绍几个方法给你看看。就是比如说Vivian 麻烦下一版。好，就是刚才我说第一就是输入这个内地人才计划就是一个专才另外第二个就是优才，下一版了，就是香港优秀人才入境计划，这个一般都是要计算这个分数的一般就是4000人就是1年的配额，但是这个分数也是要大概100多分才能够有一个机会，但是有很多朋友可能他们只是计算就是几十分，但是这个要看他实际上的情况来安排，所以这个也是有一定的难度。再下一版。另外就是读书了，就是 ING 就是来香港有一些读一些大专跟这个副学士一些master 这些这个学历的来申请来香港之后再带小朋友过来的也有一些申请人。好，下一版。另外就是企业家这一部分呢不太说太多，为什么？因为如果只是有中国身份的，没有海外住过也有海外身份的，一般都不能够从企业家来申请，所以这个也是要一定的条件我们也要看客人是不是可以因为这个就不是找工作，是在香港来开公司来营运来做的。好刚才这个重复了，再下一版。一般的流程了，刚才说就是内地专才一般大概是6个月左右了，因为为什么？因为在根据客人的情况再做一个初级的评估，另外就是收集了这个申请人的资料，再撰写计划书，这些操作大概是1到2个月。在之后我们把资料提交给入境处之后交给他们审批的时候，有时候就是来往也是要补一些文件一些资料也是有时间，大概我们所以 在这一块我们也是看到大概是3个月左右，那差不多我们一般做的申请大概是6个月之内一定会批出来，一批出来的时候他就可以拿到这个24个月，这是2年的一个签证来香港拿这个香港的身份证。拿到身份证之后，就是在未来7年了，就是你每2年每一个实践我们会跟进来帮助我们的申请人续期跟看他是不是还是在这一家公司来工作来申报，就是这个我们也会跟进，大概7年之后了，就是他就可以拿到这个永居的身份。好，下一个。好，那我们在之前呢有一个个案跟我们就是朱迪我们的他们的做一个合作，就是有一个林女士，就是她是湖北的人，她是一个妈妈，她带了一个儿子过来，就是她的意思也是希望她的儿子能够在香港读书有一个更好的一个学习的安排，在未来的发展，就是他打算来香港，他也是有一定的难度，可是我们也了解，因为他只是开一个美妆的零售的行业，不是很有专业，但是我们也帮他在包装他的履历跟他的背景来做这个专才的申请，在2020年1月提交这个申请，在2020年大概6月份，再要5个月左右林女士就拿到这个批出来这个香港专才。另外她因为刚才说了，就是因为这个客人要求要帮他的儿子找一家比较理想的学校在读书嘛，来香港是小学，这是我们找朱迪帮我们做这一块，朱迪很快了，就是在1个月不到大概好像是20多天就能够帮这个小儿子弄到就是陪到小学，就是拿到这个小学的学位，他就可以顺利的拿到这个学位。所以我们在这一块的合作跟朱迪那一边就是有一个很有效益的一个操作给我们的客户。好，所以在这一块我们下一页，好的，下一版就是我们在做这一块了，就是见到就是现在我们也知道了，就是很多家长最主要就是他也是打算跟他们的孩子要给他们一个学习的更好的一个环境跟一个发展，所以在来香港就是其中一个挺好的一个操作，但是用什么方法就要看看客户的背景跟他的实际上的情况来，我们再分析，跟他们了解，跟他们做这个 assessment 来判断就是怎么做就是有最好的效益。好，我今天要说的大概是这样了交给 Feifei， 谢谢。
好，感谢黎先生的介绍，真的是给到我们很多的信息这个例子非常的成功我看到也很兴奋好，那么非常感谢黎先生。那么今天呢，我们的活动到这里今天呢也非常感谢两个学校的校长的介绍了。好，那么好，感谢体验伊比斯和 Whisper 的这个精心的安排。那么今天我们的讲座非常的成功。线上的家长，如果你对今天的2所学校有任何的疑问，可以联系我们的顾问公司。那 PPT 上面的这个电话、邮箱以及你扫这个2维码呢，都可以跟我们在香港或者是在深圳的同事可以联系的。那么我们将会解答你的任何的问题。那么今天的讲座到这里，谢谢大家的参与Jennifer 麻烦你也补充一下，谢谢。
Thank you everyone for joining the webinar today. Please do stay tuned for our next webinar as we will promote and do sign up if you would like to hear from more international schools. And please do have a great weekend, everyone. I hope we have been very helpful. If you have any questions with regards to ESF and Wycombe Abbey, please do contact us. Thank you very much for joining the webinar today. Thank you.